The thing that I thought I'd have us do is have the presenters just go through and just very briefly say a few words in front of their own poster, just as if we were strolling around our old space and would come up to a poster and sort of say, hey, what's going on here? Obviously, we could follow up with questions and things like that afterwards, but I thought maybe a quick tour would be a great way to start. And again, for me, as someone who's an art historian, I really urge you to log in into another tab and look at those posters as the students speak, because it's just, you know, such a wonderful way to do things. But I hope you don't mind if we just kind of, I know we have quite a number of people to go through, but that's okay. We've got a little time this evening, and we'll just kind of I thought maybe I'd just stroll down the list so you can see the list of 23 presenters. We would just start in alphabetical order and start with Abby. And one of the things that I thought might be easier when we're trying to find your poster, the posters are grouped by area. So if like we have kind of biology, chemistry, math and computer science, you can see those tabs at the top of that web page. And so if you can like let us know what tab we should be searching for you, that would really help. Does that all sound good? Well, hearing nothing. I'm going to go with that as a teacher. All right, great. So Abby, I hope you don't mind me making you start, but if you'll just kind of just pull off the Band-Aid and get us moving.
Hey, so did you say that you want me to direct to like what tab you would look for a poster
Yeah, if you
under?
have that up. If you don't, I can do it.
So we would be under the social sciences. Me and my group members, Brooklyn and Alyssa. And our presentation or our poster is on the effects of altered basals and ceilings on receptive vocabulary assessment.
All right. Well, thank you. I know I'm there. I hope that gave a chance for everybody to get there. And what would you say if we walked up to you and just said, hey, what is this poster about? Oh, hold on. Danielle's doing it right now. Can you really do this, Danielle? Well, of course you can.
Yeah.
You're doing it.
Yes.
I thought this was beyond our tech ability.
What was your name again?
It's the one. It's on basals. It is. It's easier to find. It's bright red. The effects of altered basals and ceilings on receptive vocabulary. There we are. Sorry, I'm an art historian. I'm like, it's bright red. Gets their attention. Oh, that's great. Now, again, for those of you that are like me, that I can see it, but I can't actually read it, it's much more readable if you do go to that website and look there. I mean, you know, still for old people, we could still use help, but we're getting there. All right, Abby, sorry to talk over you. Is there any other members of your group here?
Yes, there is Brooklyn, and I don't know if she's in here as Gracie or Alyssa Maynor.
Oh, I see.
Yes,
Okay. Well,
perfect.
You know, I have to say, I sort of made you first because you start with A, but that's not really very fair. Do you know who would like to speak on your behalf?
No worries. I'll just say briefly, and then Brooklyn had some things prepared as well.
Okay.
So basically, we wanted to see if the assessment, the PPVT 5, could give quicker results for vocabulary assessment than previous models, and then Brooklyn had some points to add to that.
All right, go ahead, Brooklyn.
Sorry, can you hear me?
I sure can.
Okay. So the purpose of this study was to measure, the purpose of the Peabody picture vocabulary test is to measure one's receptive vocabulary, which is every concept that exists within the brain's cognitive representations. So this is also, if a child scores low on this, this can indicate a possible language disorder, which would also require further assessments. But we were wanting to see if, since with the altered basals and ceilings, we were wanting to see if this would have a difference in scoring. And so this is why we did a test comparing the scores between the PVT4 and the PVT5.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I want to remind everybody that, as these presenters are speaking and you're looking at their poster, you can certainly drop in a question at any point that you wish, because what I thought we'd do is, again, for those that just arrived, we just kind of go around and kind of take a quick look at everybody's poster, and then we can return and ask specific questions. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. I have to say that my own son I had to have some speech therapy, and it really, it was amazing. It really changed his ability to communicate, and I have nothing but nice things to say. So just want to throw that out there. All right. Well, thank you very much. If we'll move on to Alyssa Maynor. And let's say, Alyssa, what tab should we, should Danielle first be going on?
Hello, I'm Alyssa Maynor, and I'm on the same poster as Brooklyn and Abigail Keenan.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't twig on to that.
Oh, no worries. We, just to echo what Brooklyn had spoken about our poster, we wanted to take the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test, the 5th edition, and apply the 4th edition rules to the 5th edition information. So we were able to find significant differences to see, because the people that created the 4th edition of the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test, they wanted to have better test efficiency and test reliability. So that's what the whole goal of our study was, to find what the differences were, if they actually did their job, if they actually did what they wanted to do with the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test 5th edition. And we found that the differences were significant enough in time once we went through the results and compared both of them, but we also saw that it didn't shave off, an immaculate amount of time, but the measures showed as so that you could still get test reliability with using less words per se, without doing necessarily an 8 out of 10 incorrect for a basal and sealing, but you're doing a 6 out of 8.
Oh, yeah, I can see that as a time saver. Gosh, I wish I had you every time my textbook changes to a different edition. I tell you what, I mean, we always think we're doing better things, but you're absolutely right. We have to test to make sure some of the changes we're making really are leading to good improvements. But I will say that sounds very promising. All right, well, again, thank you so much, and sorry about not seeing you as part of the gang. So we're going to keep moving and move to a different poster. We're going to go to Cordell, and haven't seen him in, let's see, 2 other places, I think. That would be under humanities, right, Cordell?
Yes, ma'am. My project is the Seminole Wars of the 19th century.
Okay. So let's see how she's getting there. Yeah, down. It's got a nice like ombre. That's it.
Yep. So my project, I'm looking at the causes of the Seminole Wars. This project was done initially as a Native American Studies project for my minor in that subject, but it also ties in with my major in history because it's a historical perspective. And what I kind of found when I started looking at this topic was that the 3 separate Seminole Wars, that's how they're studied in history, as 3 separate events of war between the United States and the Seminole people, can actually be linked together into one long continuous conflict that had 2 ceasefires. And so to kind of like prove this thesis, I looked at each war individually and then tried to pull out the similarities that from each of the 3 wars that suggest that it's one long conflict instead of 3 separate instances of conflict. So that's the majority of my project. This is a little bit of a simplified version, but that's the quick rundown.
Well, it's a good thing to have as an overview because I think it lays it out really, very clearly here in a way that I have to say, until I was really an historian, you start to realize it's how people present and organize information that actually, carries weight, right? How you classify things, how you talk about things. So kudos to you on both of those instances. So thank you.
Thank you.
And then we've already heard from Brooklyn. So why don't we go to Briley? Under what area are you, Briley?
I'm under biology,
Biology.
and it is determining reproductive parameters for the distinct geographic locations of seahorses.
Oh, right. I'm sorry. I remember we have multiple wonderful seahorse
Yes.
shows.
Yes.
And okay, is that as much fun as I think it is? Because I was like, ooh, seahorses.
It is fun right now. It's a fairly new project, so right now we're just doing measurements through an online imaging program, and we're actually able to set the scale, and it will count the number of pixels, and then we can set that amount of pixels to be a certain length, like 10 centimeters, and we will use that to measure our seahorse babies. The goal of this project is to compare two different locations of the same species of seahorse and their reproductive size and then their parent size. So we're comparing the male seahorse size with the number of babies that they have and the size of their babies to see if there's any correlations between the two. And it is a relatively new project, so we're still collecting data, but that's a basic rundown of what I'm doing.
Well, if I may have a question for you later, but I will say this: your visual really convinced me about the how much more helpful it would be. So in this case, I really thought that being able to see that on a poster, I kind of got it right away. And so I just wanted to compliment you on that. All right, thank you very much, Riley. And now, Darshi, what category should we be in for you?
Hey, I'm from biology too, and I'm working on the seahorses as well.
Oh, we got the double seahorse, right? Okay,
Yes,
all
ma'am.
right. Like I said, I was super excited about both of y'all's.
Yes, ma'am. Seahorse always excites me too.
I don't know, what is it about them? Is it just that you feel like, I don't know, I just find it's very interesting that I know I clearly have an emotional reaction. And I just want to start out by saying, as this gets brought up on the screen, you too, actually, your images really helped me to understand what you were talking about, like the fact that I could see those markers and things like that right away. It really helped me to understand what you were investigating. But anyway, go right ahead.
Sure, seahorse excite me because the fact that the males carry the baby and not the females, so that's a great point for the liking to the seahorses.
That is
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So our poster is based on the research done by Dr. Emily Rose, and Dr. Heather Mason-Jones, and it is based on the 2-year mark recapture study based on the line seahorses, and we are trying to determine the accuracy of one of the software, which is I3S, to do the digital fingerprinting, and we are trying to optimize and see how much accurate we can come up with our data set.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, I look forward to, again, I have more things to say, but yes, a very interesting research. Thank you. And Dylan, what tab are you? It's like asking what sign you are, in the 70s.
I'm under the Paget one.
Ah, okay.
Or the analysis and experimentation of lunar Regulus simulant. Towards the bottom.
Yes, I remember that well. And to think I can't even grow things on Earth.
Wait till you. There it is. So my as it says is the analysis and experimentation of lunar Regulus simulant, and the idea that I had for this was, with the advancing in technologies, the plans for more deep space missions, both back to the moon as well as planned missions for Mars. With the idea of having a human colony there, I wanted to know if what use would the local simulant, or regolith as it's called, be used? Could it be used for plant growth or other things. So to do that, I did a series of experiments, both on mineralogy as well as soil analysis, and then I performed an experiment to test bulk density, permeability, and porosity. And the goal of this was can I use pieces of lunar simulant instead of having to transport Earth soil to the moon or Mars? Can we use part of the simulant as a replacement?
Yeah, I do have a question about kale. Is it just because it's trending? No, I'm just kidding. I'll follow up with that.
No,
But thank you so
I
much.
chose.
Oh, go ahead. I asked because I couldn't
I was
help
just gonna say,
myself.
you're good. We chose kale mainly because of the time constraints that we had on this. We did kale because it grows fairly fast compared to other plants, but also based off research that I conducted, it had it was able to grow in more types of soil than other plants, so it made sense to try that for lunar regolith.
You're absolutely right. My husband's just a big kale fan, and I think it's an ornamental vegetable. But but thank you so much, Dylan. All right, Ethan. What tab are you?
I think I'm in computer science.
All right, let's give it a try. It's so funny. She's doing her own little flipping, and I'm doing my own little flipping. All right. Oh, right. Oh, right. My old person reaction was scary technology, but I'm sure everyone else is thinking cool. All right. Why don't you explain what's going on?
Yeah, so our group our presentation was about how Apple has been making huge impacts on medical and lifestyle applications for the users that it gives to. They bring a lot of devices that would cost like thousands of dollars to go to the doctor to do, and you can do it on a device that's on your wrist for like $200. Stuff like there's a lot of tech that will like automatically check abnormalities in your heart, like ECGs and the heartbeat monitors, and it'll alert medical if something ever goes wrong and something is too out of abnormality. There's also make a lot of changes with fitness, and they do a lot of incentivizing like a fitness lifestyle. They like gamify a lot of their working out, so you can like gain points and you can like compete with friends. So it incentivizes a lot of working out.
Oh, I tell you, I know my kids are going to be all into this. I grew up in a different generation. Do you know what I mean? And I'm always like, but what if
Yeah.
someone takes that and you
Yeah.
I grew up with like the Terminator and Skynet. So anyway, but I see that you're one of your colleagues on this project. Brett Joyle's here.
Yeah,
Brett, did you want to say a few words? I know he's been having some technical difficulties. I think this is his third try to get back in.
I think I'm fine now. Can you guys hear me well?
We sure can now.
Okay, yeah.
So third time's a charm.
Yeah, pretty much what we have been talking about is Ethan said a lot of it, but Apple has like wearables that have taken these giant machines that 10, 15 years ago would be massive to count, to take like heart monitoring and all these things, and they have put them in a small like a watch that you can do for anything, not even just that one application. It's reading heart monitoring, and it's really helping like people monitor things that they would not have been able to at their home, let alone on the go anywhere at all times.
You're
It's
right.
really,
I mean,
yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say that, you're absolutely right. You're really changing how the elderly can potentially live. You know what I mean? What kind of lifestyle they can pursue. So, even though I find it a little scary, I think I can definitely see, if it makes you feel any better, I can also see the plus.
Yeah.
Yeah, with elderly, like there's fall detection in the newer watches. So like if you make a fall and you're unable to get up and you can't do anything, it'll automatically like call the 911 to send somebody down to help after a certain amount of time. And they have
Wow. I mean,
like
the future is now, isn't it? Like, I don't know. I'm sorry. This is what
Yeah,
happens when you talk to old people,
yeah.
right? I'm like, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, really?
Well, you're talking about your kids, like it would have GPS, you could like keep track of where they were, I guess,
Yeah, if I was smart enough, you're probably right. Anyway,
It
no,
helps with, like,
seriously though.
yeah.
I do appreciate it. And again, I see people wearing these all the time. I explained why some people are sitting there shaking their hand, trying to fool it that they're exercises and things. All right, but no, thank you both though for your introduction. And I think we're going to go on. I hope I'm not. If I've missed anybody, I'm just going to keep working the list, and it keeps moving. Gosh, but I'm going to try Grant and see if we can go to Grant's poster. And Grant, what tab are you? All right, is Grant with us? Uh-oh,
Yes,
I hear a
sorry.
bink bink. All right. Oh no, okay.
It,
I thought that was going to be the inevitable not anymore.
it is.
All right.
I am chemistry, and it's the purification of mutachrome C.
Ah, right. Okay. Ooh, we have so many chemistries, don't we? But I have to say, y'all did a great job, all of the chemistry presenters, because I understood a lot of what you were saying. So kudos to that. All right, we got you. Why don't you give us the introduction?
All right, so essentially what I was working on is there are mutated E. coli bacteria. Their plasmids have been edited and a gene has been inserted that causes them to produce a cytochrome C mutant, where one of the lysines in the long peptide chain is changed with a cysteine. And this cysteine allows us to attach a fluorescent label uh, that when the ion center of the cytochrome C is reduced by superoxide, it will give off a fluorescent pulse. And this, the work I've done is just the process of growing the bacteria, breaking the bacteria down, and then purifying the cytochrome C via different chromatographies and then gel electrophoresis to test the purity of my final product.
Right, so that people, you're lining it up so that you can use this pure form to see what you can do with it, right? Because that would be the next stage of research.
Yes, so to purify the mutated cytochrome C to apply the label to it. It's sort of like a mass scale, so we have enough so people will not have to make more.
Yeah, because I bet I did see your process. It looked very laborious.
It is a long process because
It's a labor of love and effectiveness. I'm not trying to make it sound bad. I just thought, to have a lot of that on hand for people doing things with it, it sure seemed helpful. Yeah. Well, like I said, I was able to follow some of yours, so congratulations. And it sounded really interesting, and I look forward, actually. I remember you had a bio, but were you a senior? I'm trying to remember.
I am a senior, yes.
Yeah, you are a senior, but hopefully, we'll continue. People who continue work on your project will hear what comes of it. So I look forward to that.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Can I move over to Guillermo? I believe Guillermo.
Yes,
Okay, yeah. And
can you hear
are
me?
you another chemistry or biology? Yeah, I hear you just fine.
Yes, chemistry. It's two
Chemistry. Okay.
PowerPoint. It's two posters below the current
Oh,
one.
look at that. Y'all standing right next to each other and don't even know it.
Or it might have been the third.
Yeah. Let's see. I'm
It's
I'm going
sodium
on my own screen so I
alginate
can read it.
beads.
All right. So it just kind of froze up there. Well, we'll work on getting that. Why don't you just tell people about it, even if the, oh, hold on. There it is. Okay. You go ahead then.
Okay, so this experiment is pretty much to try to help the environment with the carbon dioxide, trying to lower the levels by using algae. So this algae is pretty much algae that you can find from like rivers and anywhere where there's source of water. And so this algae, we pretty much immobilize it inside of sodium alginate beads. And we're planning to hopefully somehow have it in a container and directly connect it um, to like a vehicle to see if we can convert the carbon dioxide released from the vehicle into oxygen to help with pollution and we hope we have some success with it and so far I was able to synthesize around like 500 beads, so we're gonna start trying to do some tests with it sometime soon.
All right. So I think we're all looking forward to seeing more of this because you've taken something that can actually be a problem, as I understand it, algae. We can have too much algae, right? And now you're taking it and you're getting rid of carbon dioxide. This sounds potentially amazing. Please, we appreciate your hard work and keep it up.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move over to Hannah. And Hannah, I think you're going to get us out of the science tab into history. Am I right on that?
Yep, it's going to be in the humanities tab.
Yeah.
It's John C. Calhoun. So I think it's right under Cordell's from earlier.
All right. As an art historian, I have to say, I remember some of these things myself. And I loved your little timeline.
Thank you.
I like to get my students to do that too. All right, so why don't you tell everybody else what that's about?
So I decided to do my research. I started doing this research last semester in my archives class on John C. Calhoun because our final project for that class was to do a project on something we found in the archives, and I found these volumes of his speeches. John C. Calhoun is he's a politician from about the 1800s, and he's interesting to say the least. I don't agree with him in most areas, but he's an interesting person. He kind of invented a lot of the Republican ideals we talk about today. And he was in government for pretty much his whole life. And I really like his area of history because it's that area right before the Civil War where there was so much strife, and he is a representation of that. He is like extreme in terms of being on the right. But he has a lot of statues and memorials today, and I thought about that too when I was doing the research of how I wanted to kind of connect his life to where we are right now in this time of strife and political strife mainly. But yeah, so.
Well, I've noticed on your bio, you are a first-year history major. I would encourage you to start thinking about that connections between histories and monuments, and of course today's movements. Keep an eye out. Sometimes my department, which is the Department of Art and Design, offers a course on actually Southern monuments. So just keep an eye out because normally it's for our majors, but with somebody with a specific interest, we would be. We might reconsider. So, sorry, didn't mean to plug my home department on that one, but. Not coincidentally, I'm about to plug my home department again with our next speaker, Heijin. I don't see the rest of the group here. That would be also under humanities. It's the Powell Hall project.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's a wonderful project. And again, even on the big screen, it's a little hard to see all the details that the students have put into that. But if you ever want to wander the halls over in the University Center, you can see a lot of these in real poster form on our walls, and they're a lot easier to read on the wall.
Yeah.
So let's give Danielle a chance to try and she'll move up. I believe you're the first one under Humanities. So if you just go to the very top of the Humanities page, you can see it. But why don't you go ahead and tell everybody what y'all did? It's really exciting.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Heijin Zhang, and I'm a senior in interior design major, and our project is really related to interior design themes and like theories and some design elements. So our research was focused on wayfinding and well building standards and another design elements like geometric design and sustainable design. So our Powell Hall project focused on restoring historical characteristic of the building, designing a space that meet the music department's needs, and creating a beautiful central located recital hall that both student and the community can enjoy. So based on our research, we created some example of the music department. So if you guys see the top pictures, that 4 pictures are lobby area and also classroom for the music departments. And this space, we use the design elements such as geometric design, sustainable design, and wayfinding on this space. And also, if you guys see the middle part, the finish and furniture of first floor west wing lobby, we use this material to achieve the sustainable design. And also, if you see the bottom part, the elevation of first floor west wing, this space also achieved the wayfinding and well building standards. So I hope you guys enjoy this poster. Thank you.
Yeah, I see. We already have a question for later. Thank you again for posting questions. We will get to those questions. It's really great to see an example of, a space that's been purposefully designed to do something. So many of our spaces around campus are sort of accidental design. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. And we're going to move on to Jayla. Jayla, I remember you from yesterday. I believe you're a social science poster. I believe
Yes.
it's like the corruption in Africa.
Yes.
Good. All right. I'm looking forward to hearing that one.
Okay. I was gonna wait until my poster get
Oh, yeah.
pulled
Yeah.
up.
Sorry about
Yeah.
that.
No, you're
I'm so
fine.
excited she's able to do that because I just wasn't sure it was going to be technically possible. So, yay.
Thank you. So I did my research on the corruption in Africa. I'm just gonna go briefly through the poster. So for my abstract, my research question was what factors predict the levels of corruption across countries in Africa? And I did the study on all 54 countries of Africa. I had 6 independent variables, 6 hypotheses, notably, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know that it echoed. My dependent variable was Transparency International, which is basically there it was on a scale of 0 to 100. So the smaller the number, the more corrupt the country is. The higher the number, the less corrupt the country was. So I'm sorry. Um, yeah, I did a correlation and regression analysis to examine the relationships between the independent and dependent variables. Um, three of the three of the six independent variables were statistically significant, which was the amount of media freedom allowed in the country, the high school graduation rate in the country, and the GDP based on natural resources. The high school graduation rate ended up being statistically significant in a positive, as a positive predictor, meaning that the higher the graduation rate, the less corrupt the country was. While media freedom and the GDP by natural resources, it was statistically significant as a negative predictor, which means that the more a country depends on its primary natural resource and the less media freedom that the country has, the more corrupt the country is going to be. The tables identify all of that, my factors. I know it's kind of small, so you gotta go in there and look. But yeah, I failed to reject three of my hypotheses, and I accepted three of my hypotheses, and I rejected the last three of my hypotheses. I do want to note that I have put a box plot of the political regime. That was one of the independent variables on there. Um, it was not significant. However, it did reveal the differences between democracy and autocracies, meaning that the countries in Africa that deem themselves as democracies tend to be more corrupt than the countries that were actually not democratic. And that's all.
Wow, that's quite a lot. And I have to say, it is very interesting. Although I still, the lower the number, the higher the corruption. I don't know. It just goes against my gut. But no, your poster was very weighed out, and you explained it very clearly. Thank you. We're actually going to stay in your tab, I believe, for because I remember when I was looking at posters, the posters on we're about to look at understanding the correlation between thickening liquids and swallowing functions. It's down near the bottom of, believe it or not, social science. I'm sure there's a reason for that. Danielle, if you can see if you can locate that. And I believe all three presenters are here for that. So that's Mary, Joe, and is it Mary and Mary, or Mary and, well, I don't know. Or did
It's
you just
Mary
decide
Caitlin.
Okay, because I was going to say, did you decide one of you could no longer be Mary? No, I'm just kidding. So Mary Caitlin, Mary, and Joe are all here to talk about this. I don't know how you'll want to work this out amongst yourselves, but I don't mind hearing from all of you.
We could just let Mary take the lead with this one, and we would be I would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, great.
Okay, so our topic was understanding the correlation between thickened liquids and swallowing functions. This is technically under social science because it's under communication sciences and disorders. So it has to
Right.
deal with humanities.
I always forget that. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Oh no,
I
it's
forget
okay.
my
I just wanted to
classification
make it
systems.
clear. Yeah, I just wanted to make it clear that it kind of correlates through just the humanities side of it. So basically what we did was well, first of all, there's not a whole lot of information to go along with the use of thickened liquids like you would see in a nursing home or in a hospital setting, and how many swallows it takes to actually swallow the thickened liquids, however much amount that you put in. So what we had was a 240 milliliters of just regular plain water, 240 milliliters of honey thick liquids, which is about 4.5 tablespoons, not tablespoons, teaspoons of the honey thick, like it's the powder, but it makes it honey thick. And then we had 240 milliliters of what would be considered nectar thick water, which is about 3 teaspoons of the powder. And you stir it up, and we gave them to each participant at random. And the study that we're doing really goes more toward, we want to eventually get to the point of studying on geriatric populations, because the risk of aspiration post-stroke, post-TBI, and in hospital settings. But in order to have something to compare geriatric populations to, we must first do it on normal, healthy populations. So we used 18 to 25-year-olds, most of which, shout out to the ComD department for all the people willing to participate and take part in this not so pleasant drinking of thickened liquids. Yes.
The often uncredited supporters of undergraduate research, much appreciated.
Yes, because it's not the best. It's basically 3 whole cups of water at, imagine drinking like straight up applesauce that was flavored like water. But there's a whole discrepancy among thickened liquids as if they're good for patients or bad. Some people think that thickened liquids cause aspiration to occur more, and some people believe that it's the only way for patients to stay hydrated, so they don't aspirate on just plain thin water. And so all of our data that you see here is the amount of sips that they took of each thickened liquid in the plain thin water, and the number of swallows within each sip that they had. So it's just really an overview of, we had 10 male participants and 10 female participants, like I said, between the ages of 18 and 25. One interesting fact that I found out about whenever we were doing our research was that smoking and vaping and any type of any type of smoking that was related to just nicotine or any drug use like marijuana and acid reflux affected the results that that person had. Usually they all had an increased amount of how many times they had to swallow per sip.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes,
I mean, sad, but really interesting, because I remember thinking, I was surprised that that people weren't clear on which way was better. But now when you're still talking, I'm thinking there's so many factors to consider. That's a great point. Oh, golly.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I don't mean to take over your talk. But
it's totally
I'm sorry.
okay.
And were you finished? I'm not trying to cut you off.
I was going to ask Susanna if she had anything she wanted to add, or Joe.
Okay. All right. Well, here
Susanna, I guess I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, he said he'd cover questions, so you got your rules set up. But
I'm
great,
sorry,
thank you so
my
much.
button was stuck and dropped my phone. But yes, it is just Mary Kate hit it spot on. The interesting data was with the vaping, the acid reflux, and the smoking. Absolutely.
Yeah, more reasons to be concerned about that. So yes, thank you. Thank you. Well, all of you. I know one of your people is not. I thought she was here, but she is not. But thank all of you. And of course, the anonymous swallowers as well. I have to admit, when you described it as like nectar and honey, I pictured it tasting good. And then I heard your description. I was like, oh no.
It basically just tastes like you're drinking cornstarch.
Oh, yuck. Okay. All right. Yeah, those people need some shout outs.
I'm prior military, so I'm lucky to have any type of food or drink, so it didn't bother me that much. But to collect the data was an event.
Yeah, I've seen those
yes,
MREs.
I was
Y'all can't eat anything.
on multiple times.
Oh no. Okay,
Yeah.
you gotta. Oh, All right, suffering for our research. This is all true. Well, thank all of you, and we're going to move over, and I hope this is a more appetizing topic. At least it was when I thought about it, and that is mussels, and that is under that's biology, and I'm looking for Julianne.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, I know Danielle will, as soon as she can, she'll get over to biology and find that. But I have to say that I look forward to hearing your explanation because I guess I thought I knew a lot about mussels, but I think I just know a lot about eating mussels. So,
I don't know
and
a
did you
lot
get to
about
do
eating
that, by the
mussels.
way? Did y'all get to eat that, like at the end when the people?
No. Sadly, before at the beginning of the experiment, a lot of our mussels died due to not being taken care of. So we didn't have that much tissues to extract from. But
I see.
for future studies, we definitely have more. We just collected some, and there was like over 40 of them. So next time it will be better.
All right. Well, if you need anything, you just call me. I'll help you out. Anyway, okay. Well, I'll get to your very serious research, and apparently it's around dinner time for me, so that's where my brain goes.
Me too. But yeah, so our presentation or poster would be on the invasive species Mitella caruana, and it's native to South America. So this project was mainly to get DNA extractions from the tissues of the mantle, foot, and gills of a female Mitella caruana, because we didn't have males at the time. But basically, we wanted to just analyze the different tissues and see which one would give a highest yield of DNA with the least amount of contaminants, that being alcohol or proteins or any other thing that was DNA. But and then we found that before we did the RNase treatment, we found that the foot tissue had the highest yield, but after the RNase treatment, the mantle ended up being the one with the highest yield. And for like further research, we want to include males because they have more gametes, and so it would be a better indicator of which tissue is the best to extract DNA from.
Yeah, because
So
and your science is interested in that change from male to female, so it'd probably be important to have both of them. Yeah.
yes.
Well, you just
So this
answered
is
the question because I was like, why are they all women? But then, of course, that's what you had. So you work with what you have.
yeah.
Isn't that the researcher's way? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I'm sure there's other people that have very muscular questions, but I'm bumping. So we're going to move on to our next poster, which is by Lucas. And let's see, Lucas, you're going to be under chemistry, I think. Is that right, Lucas? Ooh, are we having sound difficulty with Lucas? I see his little thing, but it's not moving. It looks kind of empty. Oh, there we go. Could you try again? I thought I heard you. Oh man, it's just like I can see it just trying to move and all that sort of thing, but it's just not coming in. All right, how about you try the old, what I've learned is the log out, log back in. Yeah, I see that. So we'll get back to you, and I'll try and put that in the chat in a second if I can. But you try logging out and logging back in, and we'll try and come back. All right, Mallory. Mallory, what tab are you?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
I sure can.
Awesome. I'm under math and I think it's math and computer science, and I'm the very first semester.
Oh, that's convenient. Oh yeah, okay. It's like now I remember which one.
Here we go.
So very topical.
Yes, my poster is on theoretical interpretations on some COVID-19 data that I collected, and it was over topological data analysis techniques that I actually did last semester in Dr. Alt's 4990 class. So this is old data that I did last semester, but it's all theoretical based. Basically, the idea behind the project was to take techniques that we had talked about throughout the semester and apply them to some real world data. And what we ended up doing, because we were looking for higher dimensional data, we decided to do the COVID-19 data because we could go by county, as well as by week, and then by I can't remember the order. It was latitude, longitude, the week, total cases, total deaths, and the cases for each week. And that helped give us 6-dimensional data that I could then do these techniques with and then observe kind of what was happening. So the techniques we were looking at is under homology. We were specifically doing persistence homology, and in under rational homology, which is basically in this data, these holes tend to form in these different dimensions. And if you look at the bottom of the poster and the left-hand side, you kind of see what the project was based off of in our notes. So the technique ends up being, what you do is you have this different kind of dimensional data. They're kind of more set in something called a point cloud. They're not very like linear or exponential or anything like you've looked at before. They're just points scattered all over the place. And the idea behind it was to inflate these disks all with the same radius until you created these holes in the graph. And when these holes are formed, that's when we have this, if you look, there are these different lines, these blue lines and these red lines. The red lines are what's happening as these holes or these points start overlapping with each other. And these holes form when or when they overlap enough to create these holes. That's when one-dimensional homology is born, and the line will continue to go basically until the holes fill up, and then the point dies. And then we turn them into persistence diagrams, which was really interesting trying to do. I had to use Visual Studio and I had to use Python codes and actually some information on data science that I'm actually using a little this semester, like Matplotlib, and that's how I was able to make what we call persistence diagrams, which is basically just the bar diagram you see more condensed, and you can kind of look and see how far the data goes and where it stops. I had a lot of information for this paper. I actually ended up having like 30 pictures, so I ended up just picking the best ones for this. And I took each county separately. I had Forsyth, DeKalb, Cobb, Fulton, and Gwinnett. And I made the bar graphs for each one. And I made persistent. But what it was, because the data was very linear because of the time frame, and because of the deaths being, not the deaths, I'm sorry, the number of cases increasing were also linear. I ended up having to drop the data down from 6-dimension to eventually 4-dimension to eventually 2-dimensional, which is what the results you see here are 2-dimensional data, in order to get a better picture. And because it was 2-dimensional, I could do a scatter plot. And you can actually see in this first one, you can see a really good picture. It's of Cobb County. You can actually see a hole at the top of the graph, which is what that orange dot is in the persistence diagram next to it. So the higher the level, the harder it is to visualize, but with the lower level stuff, you can see these holes forming in the graphs.
Well, I got to say, it was really interesting is, you think you've seen so much COVID data, and you do, but you tend to look at it always in the same way. So, I will say that, that's a really, I really appreciated you trying to take what I almost feel like I've looked at too much and really trying to rethink it. So I found it was really useful and made me engage with it in a new way. I'm not going to say that I understood all of what went into it, but but I do appreciate all your work. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, thank you for looking at it and trying to understand. I know math can be really difficult.
But you know what, again, I want to say about this, about your department, because I'm particularly, I feel like math was clearly not a strength for mine, but if I'd gone to VSU, I mean, your department does a really good job in these talks, as I've been in many of math presentations, and y'all do a very good job of explaining it to non-specialists. I hope that I am able to do that as well from mine. Just because I do humanities doesn't mean I don't need to explain it well. So again, I really do want to say how much I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the compliment. I really do enjoy my math department as well. I think they do a very good job with this kind of information.
Yeah, and they help us out. I just want to say, as a council member, they help us out too. We have questions for them, and they help us out there too. So anyway, thank you very much. And I think I'm going to go back and try and fix, because Dylan seems to have been. Are you back up and running?
Which Dylan are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I think I'm just totally I've gone brain dead there.
Mine's working now.
I have to say that the chat just keeps scrolling, and again, as a visual person trying to read and everything, kind of popping out. I meant Lucas. I don't know why I said Dylan. I mean, they're probably popular baby names from when I was younger, but so Lucas, I wanted to talk to Lucas and Thomas because we lost Lucas because of technical difficulties. But he said he was back, but have we lost him again? I'm telling you, this thing just keeps
I'm
popping and
here.
moving.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes, good, excellent. And Thomas, I know, I don't know how you and Thomas are working out the sharing, but I know Thomas is here too.
Yes. But hello everyone. My name is Lucas Smithis. I'm co-representing here tonight with Thomas Falkenhausen. Both of us are doing research in the chemistry department with Dr. S, or Dr. Gopeek for some of you. Our research primarily focuses on the preparation, structural identity, and experimentation of engineered myoglobin protein polymer nanoconstructs. We cultivate our myoglobin by growing genetically modified E. coli bacteria that are engineered to express high amounts of myoglobin protein, after which we take steps to purify and isolate our myoglobin from our final culture. But before I get too ahead of myself and drown you all with details about our research, I will pass the baton to Thomas for a brief explanation as to what we do and our overall goal with our research. So Thomas, when you're ready.
Thanks, Lucas. Well, hi guys, my name is Thomas Falkenhausen. And so he really kind of explained it very well about what we do in the beginning part, is where we get this modified hemoglobin, purify it, get it very similar to the cytochrome C project that we heard about earlier. We go through very same process of doing many different chromatography. And once we get it isolated, we do a 3-step process of sort of editing the outside of the enzyme. And you might be asking, like, what is it important to edit the outside of the enzyme? Is because we are trying to use this protein to do stuff that it typically doesn't do. And by editing the outside, we can actually improve its stability in outside of like natural conditions. And so one of the ways that we edit the outside of these proteins is by attaching, we sort of make a positive charge on the outside of the enzyme, and then we take another compound that's a surfactant, and we attach it as well electrostatically. So that just means, positive, negative charges attract. And then once we go through that process, we then try to remove all of the water. And then we get a very, very kind of dry mixture. And then once we have that dry mixture, we could then run other reactions that are very water sensitive. So one of the ultimate goals of this project is to perform reactions that are water sensitive and try to perform them in non-aqueous media, which just means no water present. Because without the water present, we can actually get different products that would not traditionally form. And so I started this project last summer, right in the middle of the pandemic. And then I've been slowly working on it, adding more and more people to this project. And Lucas was one of my recent additions. And yeah, I look forward to this summer to be able to work on it a little bit more, since it'll be my last summer to work on it.
Oh, well, I'm glad to hear all the hard work you guys are doing. Now, did you have something? Were you doing this so that it would be available to use by many others, or did you already have in mind like a biocatalyst that you wanted to use it for, and this was the first step? And I hope I am asking this question correctly.
Yeah, so this actually was a project that I had actually gotten from another student back in the day as well. And so it's been a very long-standing project, and we are looking into potentially doing a different biocatalyst very soon this summer, actually. And so it's just kind of one of the ones that we've been working with, and so we already have it. But there is potential for this summer to actually be doing a brand new and performing a different reaction as well.
All right. Well, again, it was just one of those things that occurred to me as I was reading your poster. So, well, thank you, Votes, very much. Again, something I was able to follow. I'm always impressed. And
Thank you.
I'd like to just backtrack for 1 minute, because when I was having my muscle moment and I was talking very exclusively to Julianne, I did not realize, Precious, that you were here as well, and didn't want you to feel left out of that conversation. That was my oversight. So, Precious, if there's anything you'd like to add to this conversation, again, we're back to the muscles and the studying them as they change sex, but right now they're focusing on what's the best place to get the most DNA out of. I just wanted to make sure you didn't feel, I certainly did not mean to overlook you.
Hey, it's fine. I was right here with Julie when you were when she was talking, so it's perfectly fine. But I don't have much to say though.
Okay, well, like I said, it's perfectly fine to be a cohesive team and have somebody being the talker. I just certainly didn't want to leave you out. So thank you very much for checking in with me. All right, well, we'll keep moving on and go into Scott White, who I believe is going to be, you worked on our springs, and that would be under, okay, what is that? Where did I see that? Was that?
It should be under the Paget.
The Paget. See, it's like it's not a word, and this is what happens to me. I'm not good at categories like that. All right, but I did remember that you were working on springs. So again, I know that there's been some popping in the chat about people having issues with with a number of things, but including visuals. But I just want to remind everybody that you can go on and view the posters in the the posters are already up. I have to admit, I'm using that site because for me, it's a lot bigger and I can actually read it. So if you're with us, make sure you're doing in the Paget tab and you're looking at the one on the Wonderful Springs. And with that, I'm just going to let you take over.
Hi, I'm Scott. My poster, I was analyzing hydrographs of 3 karst springs in Florida. We worked on Blue Springs, Manatee Springs, and Blue Hole Springs. The analysis we did was to find the recession coefficients, the storage capacity, and the base flows. The recession coefficients that we were looking for helps us decide how much water it can hold and all that. Storage capacity is about the same thing. We use the recession coefficients to help us find the storage capacities. We found out that most of our data were actually large, like our recession coefficients. They may look small in our data, but it actually represents higher reservoirs that could hold more water. We also looked at the maximum and minimum values of each spring. These helped us determine the base flow, so how much water can flow in and out of them at a given time. Our data, we have several graphs on here showing different recessive curve data for each 3 springs. And then we also, at the end of it all, we compared it with different springs all over the United States. Like if bottom ones, we have like Silver Springs is like 1.2, which is very close to what we had for like Blue Springs, Florida.
Well, I have to say, I did appreciate, all this study and attention to something that is actually so important, but I think a lot of people don't know a lot about it. So, I have to say, you laid it out very well and very clearly. I can even read it actually, just as normal when I look at it on the screen. So I do really appreciate that. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to go over to Troy, to you now. I know that you had a lot of people working with you on your project, and I'm trying to see who all is here, but I don't, do you know if there's anyone else for your project here?
Are you talking about the recycling
Yeah.
project? Yeah, that one was just me.
Okay. I was thinking the school project, but which one were you thinking about?
Oh, okay. The school project was actually a class effort. I'm not sure if any of my other class members are here. I know someone else said they were going to come and talk about it, but I
Okay, but
don't
you
see
you were going to
another.
talk about, is there another one that I'm not remembering?
I'm a part of this one for the class, and then I had one called Recycling for Tomorrow. That one is up under Paget.
Paget. Okay, gotcha. Recycling for
Yeah,
tomorrow.
yeah.
Gotcha. Well, again, if you wouldn't mind just saying a word about the school one, and then so now you get to do double duty, and then we'll work over to your recycling one.
Okay. So basically, a short summary for the school one was that my class we decided to go over schools and kind of see what they did to ensure the safety of like the students and teachers when they came back to school. Um, so each student got to survey two different people from school. It was either a teacher, an administrator, or just a regular staff member, whether it was like a janitor or whatnot. And we just basically went through, we asked them 20 different questions, and we surveyed them through Qualtrics, and everyone composed their own little part. My part specifically with this project was to go over future limitations and future suggestions for if we did this again. And with that, I found that it would be better if we would have had a little bit more time to research more people, and also if we would have had time to have a more broad area to study. We mostly got teachers and administrators in the area of Georgia. I did think that we got two overseas. I can't remember exactly where they were from. I want to say one was in Poland, but do not quote me. But we did a good job, I think, for last second project, even though that post is
Well,
not on the
yeah,
screen. But
I'm glad you gave a few minutes to talk about that because I think, of course, there's a lot of faculty members that, they saw the words COVID and education and school closing, and, it was something we were definitely, a lot of people have an interest in. But of course, recycling is another area that is important. And if you could talk a little bit about that, we'd appreciate that too.
all right, so my actual project or thesis was titled "Recycling for a Better Tomorrow." So I actually heard around from my advisor that some of the things that we were recycling on campus were actually not being recycled; they were actually being dumped and mixed with other waste. And that kind of opened my eyes to this. So I kind of wanted to dig into the recycling world a little bit. With my research, I surveyed 50 different companies. Each company was they were all states bordering Georgia. I didn't go past um, those areas. And most of them came from northern Atlanta. I'm sorry, excuse me, northern Georgia, northern Alabama, and some came from North Carolina as well. I didn't really get too many from Florida or the other states. It was actually very hard. I called almost about 200 companies just to get 50 surveys. And as far as the consumer or recycler survey, I got about 610 responses from that. For the business survey, I kind of basically asked them if COVID had an impact on what materials they received or how much waste they received. I also asked them if they mixed recyclables with their waste, or if they created waste and mixed it with the recyclables there as well, or if they also took materials that they didn't receive to other places. And as far as the consumer survey, I just asked them if they recycled, what materials they recycle, and how often, and just their thoughts on what we could do as a community or as a city to make the ease of recycling a little bit better and to increase participation. I do have four graphs on the poster that just talk about the percentages of materials that are recycled by consumers, the age group compared to participation, the race, compared to participation, and as well as the amount of what materials that the drop-off sites took as well.
Yeah, well, thank you for doing that study. I'd heard that rumor about things from VSU being dumped as well. You know, it's great to have somebody really focused on that and looking at it. I know there are some groups on campus that are also very interested in that as well. So thank you very much for that. All right. Well, we've got a pair that's actually linked together, so I'm not going to leave anybody out. Victoria and Riley, you are looking at. Oh, remind me your tab. All right, and that's Victoria or Riley. And I know there's been a lot of tech issues, but if I remember, you were doing the reading comprehension. Oh, and I see the little no. The connection problem sign. Well, we'll come back to them. A really interesting poster on reading comprehension and speed. I definitely will want to try and come back to that when we can. Now I think I'll just move down, and I just see the name Wally, which feels a little bit like a joke, but I assume that is your first name, you were, I believe you're in the, let's see, is that going to be biology, if I remember right? I think this is one of our people doing the hard work to work on those ways to purify and contain materials. Is that right, Wally?
Can I?
Oh, I hear you now.
No, I'm under chemistry.
Oh, chemistry. Okay, chemistry. All right, but am I right? Or you were one of the people doing that hard work to try and see if they can get things? It was just remind me of your topic. I'm so sorry.
It's a myoglobulin biocatalyst, an engineered biocatalyst.
Right. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
What's your last name, Wally?
So we're under chemistry.
I'm sorry, I didn't put it on here.
Sorry, pardon. My mic went out. What was it again?
Hamid, Haamid.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so she's going to be working to pull that up, and I've already found you in my scroll. I don't know if other people are doing the same, but can you tell us about what you were doing?
So basically, with prior research, we are using we're engineering a biocatalyst for the purpose of recycling and efficiency of biocatalysts, because biocatalysts are, especially from like a sperm whale, myoglobin is very hard to like use a lot of. So we're doing it for recyclability and use purposes. So we engineered a DNA, and the way we were testing to make sure it works correctly is we made E. coli cells containing that engineered myoglobin and turned them into beads. And with those beads, we ran a reaction that we later GC'd to understand if it gave us what we needed out of the reaction.
Well, I have to say, I thought of it is, I was trying to picture a way for myself to understand it. Is it like a gel cap? I mean, I know that's a very not at all the sort of thing, but because you have this, liquid that's precious and needs to be preserved and then be able to be kind of kept and transported, would that be a stupid analogy?
It wouldn't be a stupid analogy, yeah.
Hey, yay!
And also in the creation of like the beads, we're trying to do things that make them like slightly tougher or better able to like stick together and hold together.
Yeah.
We're
All
like
right. Well,
the
look at
cells in
that.
there.
I actually remember that and understood that very much. And so, yeah, that I mean, obviously I don't fully understand all of what we'll do with it and that sort of thing, but that really made a lot of sense to me. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
All right, now I'm going to try Victoria and Riley again to see if we've got audio.
I think my audio is working now. Can you hear me?
I can. All right. And your poster,
Maybe.
again, I remember it well about reading. Yes, I can. Oh, can you hear me? Oh, I don't think she can hear us. I'm trying to type. And I think that was, oh, well. Man, I actually heard her. That's so sad. She's halfway there. Well, we'll put them back. They've got the little no sign next to them, so we'll come back to that, and we'll just keep taking the tour. Oh, I keep trying to. Boy, I tell you that I don't know how. Danielle, I don't know how you keep track of that scroll. It keeps going in and going up and down. I talk about inability to read. That happens to me as I'm trying to do all this. But I'm going to go down to Wesley. Wesley, let's hope you've got Mike.
I think my audio is back. It was just reconnecting.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay. All right. Well, Wesley, if you could just hold on for 1 second, we're going to talk to her. Talk to him while they got him.
I will yield the floor.
Thank you. So let's see if
Sorry.
we can talk about what you were doing. It sounded, again, I thought it was very interesting.
Yeah. So Riley and I worked with Dr. Carter to work on different types of reading comprehension and ways to track while you're reading in different ways, whether it's self-pacing or using a cursor on the computer or using a piece of paper or using your finger to best kind of compare whether one is superior to another, because they have all been tested individually, but not so against one another. And so that was really the purpose of ours. And then results was there wasn't anything that stood out as the most effective or the most efficient. And it actually slowed down your reading rate, which is shown to actually decrease comprehension. So it was quite interesting to watch and to kind of just track that and see how that worked. And for us, we worked with a group of mostly grad students, so it was, the mid-20 range, predominantly. I think it was all females, if I remember correctly. And so, yeah, it was just really interesting to see how that played out and to know that there wasn't a superior form of reading comprehension that would be best, and it's kind of just by individual.
Yeah, I didn't know it'd be so individualistic. But can I ask you, you made reference to, you thought you might have picked a really challenging work to read. Would you mind sharing what you had them read?
Yes, they were a couple different passages, each question or each different way to track. Each method had a different passage that kind of went along with it. And they were difficult predominantly in the vocabulary sense, which kind of challenged the reader to try and understand the full concept of it, and that's usually where it kind of broke down in the
So maybe
answering.
like you mean like specialized vocabulary?
Yes.
Yeah. Again, this is, as we're reading each other's posters, we start to realize how much each, area has its own specialized language, and that does slow you down. I will say that. Well, again, I found that to be particularly interesting as I try and, both encourage reading and have a lot of reading to do. So I do appreciate your feedback. I'm glad we finally got to hear from you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, but I will move to the very generous and very patient Wesley, who is doing equally important things right here, more COVID, right here in South Georgia. So I would love to hear from you if you can get back on.
Good evening, everyone. I'm sure we're all sick to death of hearing about COVID, but here we are a year later still talking about it. So I've done a poster on the South Georgia COVID-19 impact study. And the survey opened in May and closed in August. And so it really kind of gave us a real in the moment type opinion that we can look back later. So it's not, a lot of the information we have now is somewhat hindsight. So I think that, it's important to note that this survey was taken in that, really in the moment time. Some of the real interesting things we were able to find is, well, first and foremost, we used the VSU survey material Qualtrics, which was is very good about finding trends that you might not otherwise notice. And one of those trends was that baby boomers and older generally tend to believe that the only solution to the pandemic is a vaccine, whereas those younger tend to believe that that's not necessarily the case. And then there are a lot of areas that we agree on. For instance, I'm sure everybody remembers they started releasing a bunch of prisoners back in March and April of last year, and a lot of people, especially in South Georgia, didn't agree with that, and I think those are some interesting takeaways. The last thing I'll note is that South Georgia seemed to view that it is the government's role to handle a pandemic, to be prepared for this, but they do not approve of what the government has done to do that. And I just think this survey and the data that we gathered is going to be able to be used in future studies so that we can be better prepared. God forbid something like this happen again.
Yeah, well, I'm a historian, so I completely agree. These things need analysis. But I will say that I thought you made a really interesting point about the people that lived through the polio vaccine were really more inclined to believe in the vaccine as the answer and as the, that needed to be what we focused on. I just wanted to say I thought that was that really made me think. So that was very nice.
I think that certainly attributes to it. And then some studies have suggested that younger people are more prone to hand washing, mask wearing, social distancing. And so that too can influence why they think that a vaccine isn't necessarily the only solution.
Yeah. Again, really appreciate it. I think it's good, important work. So I'm sure there'll be some other people in the question and answer who agree with me as well. So thank you very much, Wesley. And we're going to go over to Zachary. And Zachary, you did, okay, it is under, is it under, what is your tab? I remember that it was.
It's actually the.
See, I can never remember that.
Right above this one, if you just scroll up a little.
Oh, okay, perfect. I actually remember it really well. Your graphics were really effective. I just felt like you really visually laid out to me, as someone that's not a specialist in the area, what you were trying to express. So I just want to, for those people that I know I know some people have a black screen for that, but again, if you can pop over and take a look at them in the actual presentations by the I'm not talking well. You look over in the presentations. It's a great poster, but I'll let you talk about the content of that poster too.
Yes, ma'am. So this was a textural analysis of the Talbotton Dike that's in Talbotton, Georgia, near Woodland. And so the main purpose of this was really to collect the samples, bring them back, send them off for thin sections, and do some thin section analysis. Which, if you can see the poster, the rainbow colored image right there is actually a photo that was taken of it, which is known as cross nickels, which has a little bit of polarized light in it, which allows you to identify the different minerals that are inside of the actual thin section. And by doing this, it actually allows us to determine the cooling rates, the mineralogic composition, and just pretty much the geologic history of the dike itself. And one of the main reasons for doing this was this dike is fairly under-researched and understudied, I should say, as far as the geologic history. So we really wanted to go ahead and get some kind of information out there, because as the geologic features start to erode, they start eroding away and they're just kind of lost in time. And so that this is just one of those things that is almost on the verge of, I don't want to say going extinct because it'll be underground, but it's just going to be harder to study in that way. And in a couple of the pictures there that is actually on the poster itself, I tried laying it out on the geologic map, which is right underneath the methodology little text box, and then as well as the bottom left-hand corner, which kind of gives you a rough estimate exactly of where Talbotton, Georgia is. And pretty much all it's saying is if you can see the really thin blue line that's on there, that's actually on the geologic map, that's an example of how long the dike actually is. And all it is just an igneous intrusion that was from the Mesozoic era that ended up from the rifting of Pangaea. And my hypothesis actually was confirmed in a way due to, in one of my samples, which was collected at a depth near a quarry, that depth was something around 20 meters, I believe. And in that sample, we actually found recrystallization, or information that signifies that there was multiple pulses of magma. So it wasn't just a one and done event. It was a multitude of events that led up to this 39-kilometer long dike that protrudes through Georgia.
Well, again, like I said, you really laid that out well orally, as well as now visually as well. Again, the art historian. I always have a weakness in my heart for the poster sessions because I believe so much in the combination of effective written, visual, and oral presentation. So thank you very much for your research and your explanations.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
And I did see Allison Cochran has joined us. She is one of the Powell Hall Project people. So I see that you're there, Allison, and I know that there's a couple of questions I saw forming in the chat, so if you'll stay tuned for that. I also noticed that Armando, you have joined us, and I remember you did that, you were part of that presentation on the emergency vehicles, getting emergency vehicles. Do you mind talking about your project for us?
No, I don't mind at all. Okay, so basically my whole project was all about using preemption units in emergency vehicles around Valdosta to basically improve response times. So currently right now, Valdosta is actually implementing these preemption units in their fire trucks. So that's already happening, but my whole focus was to expand this whole project to install these preemption units into like other emergency vehicles such as ambulances and police cruisers. And what these preemption units do is they communicate to intersections around Valdosta in the city. And whenever there's an emergency and they have this preemption unit active, these trucks the intersection will actually change green for these, emergency vehicles to help eliminate collisions, because if they have to run a red light, that can be really dangerous, and it saves on average around 10 to 12 seconds per intersection, and so that can lead to response times even quicker and even safer, for saving lives and such like that. But that's basically my whole thing was, going forward and stepping into installing these preemption units and seeing if we can get them in like ambulances and or police cruisers around Valdosta.
Well, I'm going to be honest. I guess, made the assumption that they were in there. I didn't realize that they weren't. Although I will say, I do find it kind of funny when we have people that are new to the area. I always have to explain to them how we all, as Southerners, pull over to the side of the road when there's emergency vehicles and things, because not everywhere does that. And I think people who don't know what they're doing, it can be quite alarming. All of a sudden, everyone's pulling over. They don't know why. But yeah, no, that was fascinating to learn. I just assumed that they had that technology. I don't know what I was thinking, but thank you very much. And I would like to follow up with Dashi, or Daishi. I'm sorry, I don't know how you prefer that pronounced. Although it's a beautiful oh, come on, Deja. I was not even close, but it's actually really pretty. I love the AE. I study Latin. I love that. If you could, you talked about tropical plants, I remember, because you were trying to work out extracts from there. So that was under, what was your tab again? I'm so sorry.
Chemistry.
Chemistry. I tell you, I don't know. I know. I remember the posters, but not the tabs. All right. So
I think
that's
it's number 8.
Oh, look at see, look at you. See, that's
Oh,
the
there
science
you go.
person. It's
Yes.
what tab it is, and then number, and you got it all worked out. Well, thank you. But please share with them your wonderful findings.
All right. Hello, my name is Deja McCoy. I did research with Dr. Salami this semester and half of last semester. Our research focused on the exploration of tropical plants and bioactive phytocompounds. So basically what our research did was we extracted, identified, and purified tropical plants, and then we use the extracts to find phytocompounds which could lead to be anti-anemics, anticoagulants, and antipyretics. So we did all this with it took a course of days. So our focus was to first take the tropical plants, which we used a Tridax procuban plant, which is found in usually dry areas like Florida or South America, and we extracted them using a soxylate extractor. And we did the first
sample using a methylene chloride solution, and we did it in a course of hours. It took about 11 hours to extract the solution completely, well, extract the plant completely, excuse me. And then we did the same thing using a different solution, which was a in normal hexane and methanol solution, 50-50. And we did that one for about 10 hours. So after we did the extractions using the Soxhlet extractor, we placed it with a thin layer chromatography test, and basically that showed if the solution sample basically separated on the paper, and that'll show if there is something present in the solution, if we got anything from the plant into the two solutions that we got. After that, we put it in a column chromatography test, and from there, it showed another level of extracting, and that basically showed if the solution and the plant separated. And then after we did those, for those trials, we placed it in a gas chromatography machine where, as you can see, the figure 1, it is the methylene chloride solution in the Tridax plant, while figure 2 is the 50-50 normal hexane and methanol solution. So in the first figure, you'll see that it took about, sorry, I have to zoom in. It took about 30 minutes for the phyto compounds to show that it was something in the solution. Basically, the gas chromatography, it shows if there's something present. It doesn't show what is present. So it took about 30 minutes for that, while in figure 2, it took about, I say 8 to 10 minutes to show that there was something present. So basically the difference in time is from the polarity of the solutions, or not the solutions, the two solvents that we use, the methylene chloride and normal hexane and methanol. So with the two different solutions, it just took a different time for it to show that something was present. So in the future research, we're planning on using other ways to show what is present, which compounds are present in those two extracts, to find what can we do to find what can be used as those, what are they? Sorry, just a second. Basically, we're trying to find what causes the antianemics, anticoagulants, and antipyretics. So that's the purpose of our experiment.
Wow, that I have to say, when I read it, I thought, oh my gosh, it's like a mystery, because you've done all this work and you know you've got something, but you don't know what yet. I don't know. I thought it sounded, very exciting. And again, because I noticed, I remembered you weren't a junior, I assume you're going to be continue your hard work, and we'll hear what you found next year, right?
Yes, ma'am. I'll be a rising senior this summer.
Oh, excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to find out what you found. Like I said, it's like a mystery, a mystery that took a lot of work. Well, I have to say, I know we've had a lot of people with a lot of tech issues and a lot of people getting added back in. Is there anybody who is who has a poster, who has not spoken, and you might be listed as a participant, just because, again, of all the tech issues coming in and out? Oh, I see, David, you are back. Thank you. We saw you, and I was like, and then I saw you disappear. And I can tell that you are under the math tab. So at least I know math when I see it. But if you could talk to us about the type of algorithms that you looked into, that would be great.
Yes, ma'am. Can you guys hear me?
We sure can.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Sorry about that. The internet is got me. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
I
please, if you
apologize
ever
about
need someone to complain about computers, I'm an ancient art historian, so I am there in a second.
Yes, ma'am. I understand. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm sorry for the delay, and it's nice. It's a pleasure being here. I always want to be here, so I'm finally here. Hello, and my name is David Trung. My research is centered around two topics: fault containment algorithms and transient failures. Generally, transient failures consisting of mass failures and single failures. The probability of a mass failure is small, but the probability of a single failure is very likely. The problem of reducing or containing the effects of a single failures is becoming very important because of the dramatic growth of network size. A single transient failures is a large portion of the system, so that does happens more often. So um, we are in the process of running a simulations experiment to evaluate the effectiveness of our algorithms. This research will continue um, throughout the summer with the BSRI, the Blazer Summer Research Institute grant. The algorithm that you see before you demonstrate how it can um, produce in any graph form. Like it can produce in any graph. And it runs a loop. If I can see it, yeah, it runs a loop. So it generates a random graph that is generated, and then it runs a loop throughout. So it produces different numbers every time. So we're going to use that throughout the summer. We are planning on various different perimeters and see how those variations affect the stabilization times of the network. We will run our simulation with various networks, size, and different degrees of nodes. We will also explore the conditions in different graphs like ring graphs, tree graph, and star graph. So right now we're just talking about problems and just defining what it is that we're doing.
Well, I have to say, once again, another, to me, surprisingly clear and understandable math presentation.
Thank you.
I particularly, now maybe I'm appreciating it more of a visual level, but I do think you did a really nice job of explaining why those things were important, even if I didn't follow all your math. So I just wanted to say that, and thank you that we finally got to hear from you. That's always great. So thank you again for your time. I know we have another person that kind of got back in, and that's Danielle. Danielle, you were looking into a topic that actually was the subject of several other posters I saw, and that is there's an interest in green technology. So I think that a lot of people would be very interested to hear if your tech's up and running.
Yes,
Danielle
can you hear me
McKay.
okay?
Oh, yes, now I can. Thank you.
Okay, great. So hello, everybody. My name is Danielle McKay, and I am conducting research with Dr. De La Garza this semester. Our goal of our project is mainly to, I'm sorry. Yeah, the goal of our project is mainly to use the iron 3 oxide nanoparticle solutions to create films that will eventually be used in solar cells for a safer method of energy conversion. So basically, we use these iron oxide nanoparticles because it's safer for us, it's more cost effective and environmentally friendly. However, we do use small molecules such as dopamine and dopac to modify the films and improve the fast recombination rates of these nanoparticles, and eventually it will help its ability to convert light energy more effectively after we create these cells. So far in my project, I've done a lot of background work. I've prepared the iron oxide nanoparticle solution. And as you can see in the figures, figure 1 is some of the steps I've taken to prepare the solutions. I've also characterized the solution using UV-vis techniques. I've obtained the spectras for the dopamine and dopax molecules in order to use that to eventually compare to other results. And also, I've used previous iron oxide slides to basically get a feel for the project and to learn more about them and to see if my results will basically compare and basically produce the same results.
Well, thank you. And of course, only now do I remember you were on, am I correct? You are part of 2 projects. That was your personal project, but are you also involved in the one that's working on green building material?
Yes, I am.
Okay, so I'm sorry I got my, I was thinking of that project first, and I'm going to be honest as to why, because I'm in the Department of Art and Design, and we have an interior design program that talks a lot about green building techniques, as you heard from some of the people at the Powell Hall project. So would you mind saying a word about that one too? I know that that worked with a bunch of other students. I don't think I saw any of them here. Am I right about that?
Oh
Are there
no.
other students here for that project too?
Um, no, ma'am, but I don't mind explaining a little bit about it.
If you don't mind saying a word, I thought it was a great poster.
Yeah, no problem. So this project was with our environmental chemistry class, and we basically are using stearic acid molds as a way to create more environmentally friendly green material, green building material for tiny houses. So basically, we have different models, so we can either like do a spray-on version, or you can use the stearic acid to make blocks, and you can also put little designs on them as well. We basically went into the lab and practiced with this molecule and learned how to break it down and how to build the molds. So it's an ongoing project, but I'm really happy with the results, and we are also participating in the business competition. So very excited about that as well.
Yes, thank you for doing double duty there. But again, two really good projects, and clearly chemistry is serving you well in a lot of different contexts. So word out to all the things that chemistry does, I have to say.
Thank you very
It's
much.
true. There's so many, fields that really do overlap. But let me also just throw another shout out. Is there anybody else that I might have overlooked? Somebody that, again, with all the drop-ins and dropouts from the technology, are there any presenters that are here that haven't had a chance to speak? No? All right. Well, how about we start with some questions? I know that I saw one earlier, and for one, it was for the Powell Hall project. If somebody could talk about how the design elements came about. So talk a little bit more about, for the Powell Hall project, how you decided on some of those design elements. And I know that's a lot. So if you could just maybe each pick, one or two of your favorites.
Can y'all hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. So one of the main design elements we used was on color theory. I know VSU has a lot of red and neutral tones throughout campus, but we decided to use the color purple, and we used a different shade in each quadrant of the building to help with wayfinding. So all of our signs will have a different shade that correlates to each quadrant of the building. The color purple is also an uplifting color, which encourages creativity. We thought that would be great to use in this space that's based on creativity and learning. Yeah, we wanted to make sure we created well-structured paths throughout the space so it wasn't confusing. We didn't want to give the user too many choices, navigation, just something simple. And we wanted to make each quadrant of the building different so it would be easy to navigate.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I hope that I know some people had some questions about the project, and it was nice to hear your voice on that, Allison, as well. And I just happened to see a post in the chat that was, of course, asking about seahorse recognition and facial recognition of seahorses. And they said they might have missed the original presentation, but if you could just speak to that a little bit more, because, again, the seahorse mania is not mine alone, clearly.
Yes, this is Darshi Patel, and the project, the poster was belonging to me. I can speak about it. All right.
Okay.
Yeah, so our research was based on optimizing the accuracy of the facial recognition software, which is I3S, and we used the Bahamian line seahorses, which is also known as Hippocampus erectus, and we try for microcapture study we have given each seahorse a unique identity by using a live tag, which is a fluorescent elastomer tag, which is given to each seahorse to give them a unique identity. For this poster, we are trying to see how much accuracy our I3S system can come up with the exact match. For the project, we have also used the ImageJ program to digitally measure the size of the seahorse to compare and see the two seahorses that we have come up with the exact match has same body measurements or not. Our original hypothesis was there is no significant difference between the two body measurements because as you can see in figure number 4, we can see that as the time of the recapture was kept in between 1 to 7 days, there should be no body growth in between a short time. And we did paired t-test using the R software, and we have seen that our p-values was considerably higher, and then we saw that our there was no difference between the two recaptures, and our I3S system is fairly reliable to come up with the recaptured seahorses. There is definitely some errors due to the quality of the picture and the time of the picture taken, but our future analysis is working on optimizing it by further dividing the database into the male, female, as well as the left and the right side of the body faces. That's all about the poster. Do you have any more questions, Kali? Can anyone hear me?
Sorry, yes, I can. I think we've lost Glenda. So thank you so much for answering that question. We have a couple more, and I guess I'll be running host until she comes back. So for Jayla from Precious, how did the design elements come about? What made you pick this topic? Because people don't really talk a lot about this. Jayla, are you there?
Are you talking about me?
No, question for Jayla Jackson.
Okay.
Thank you, though, Darsha. Alrighty. Since technical difficulties abound, Thomas and Lucas, a question for you. So your research was done during the time of COVID. Could you talk more about how the process of doing your research was impacted by the pandemic around us?
Sure. So it's actually kind of interesting what happened is because I had started it during the semester, and when we all went for spring break, I had to put a sort of like a pin in where I started my research. I had just started to do just the first few parts of the nanoconjugation, and so I had to put like kind of like a pin in what I was doing. And then when we released for the summer, I was one of the few people that were able to come back to campus, but we started kind of, very, social distance in the lab. We were, maintaining 6 feet apart at all times. And then when they adopted the mask policy, we just required masks like constantly. But due to the nature of our research, we kind of always had a sort of focus on cleanliness since we do a lot of cultures and a lot of cell preparation. And so a lot of very hand washing, wearing gloves, making sure not to contaminate, sterilizing all of our instruments was something that we were really kind of already used to in our research. And so it really didn't impact us in a sense of it inhibited everything we were doing, but it did make a lot of other things like collaborating with other individuals a lot harder, especially with getting our data out to people, using certain instrumentation, having to kind of schedule certain times to learn about how to use materials. And so it did come with very unique stances. But after the summer, we were just kind of like, doing research was almost second nature now. And with the new COVID precautions in place, we were very well adapted. So my final answer is it really didn't impact so much, but it did make getting certain tests done a little bit harder than others.
Well, I want to say that I'm back. So I suffered, equally with all of you, some fun technical difficulties. And I come back and I find that there was somebody that I missed. Carla, you were one of the workers on the blood meal. Am I right about that?
Yes, ma'am. I'm in the biology department.
Yeah.
With Dr. Chambers.
Wonderful. If you just wouldn't mind, I know we don't have everything all up because gosh knows tech, but I think you could do a great job just explaining that really quickly for everybody, and then we'll get back to more questions.
Yeah, so my research is just about, we're looking at mosquitoes and also the parasite D. immitis, and we're just looking at the prevalence here, South Georgia, because it's a big issue all over the United States. We're trying to make a human blood index, and it's a part of the Blazer Research Institute, and we will be continuing it with the grant over the summer. And right now we're just doing DNA extraction and also gel analysis. So yeah.
Well, like I said, well, it sure did, and I have to say that I think we're all very interested in learning more about mosquitoes and mosquito-borne illnesses. So, soon we'll be in that humming season where you go outside and that world just hums. So, thank you very much for that. Let me catch up with some questions that popped up while I was away. This one's for Julianne, and the question is: can you tell us if the different water temperatures or changes of water have any impact?
So that's another great research question that we were thinking of considering, because there's other factors that could affect like temperature or like the salinity changes, but we haven't had like enough information to back it up. But
Well,
you mean like impact? Oh, sorry.
Oh, well, I was going to say, first off, having things to look into that you want to look into, it's always good, even if you don't have it yet, knowing where you're going, that's great. But regarding the detail, I'm going back to your question, I'm sorry. Let's see. I think that, or maybe the changes in, it says different water temperatures, the many types of water, meaning, I guess that would be referring to the, that's one of those things, salinity of water and things like that. You'll have to excuse me, I'm trying to interpret a question as an art historian, so, but that sounds reasonable to me. All right, well, hopefully we answered that. If not, please follow up that in the chat. We've got one for Daisha. She said, the question was, you mentioned briefly that you will be continuing your research in the coming year. Can you talk more about the direction you want to move to, more about the direction you want to move into and how you will expand your research? Oh, is she still here? She must have gotten kicked, huh? Okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to keep working down the list. And we have now we do have another question about the Powell Hall project, and we haven't heard from you, Heijin. Did you want to highlight a design element that you wanted to talk about and just kind of highlight? Because we heard from Alyssa, but we hadn't heard from you. I just thought I'd offer that to you. All right, I'm just going to keep moving. I do want to say that the person that was working.
Somebody, did you say you had a question for me?
Oh, I think there's one in the chat. Hold on, is there one for Dylan in the chat?
Yes, last question. Dylan.
Sorry about that.
Scared for me. Oh, no, you
Yeah,
go ahead
I'm
and read it, Glenna.
Too. Is it the one that is, let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm having trouble too.
Dr.
Okay, hold
Laverne
on.
wants
It
to
came up.
know if you're continuing your research and growing on the moon. Is this a future career?
Yeah, that would definitely be something I would want to pursue. I do have plans to continue this research next semester. I've talked with both my advisor as well as the other professor, Dr. Tima, that I worked with to do the experiments, and both of them would very much like to continue this research. And if it could become a career, I would be more than interested in doing that.
Well, maybe this just comes from someone that reads a lot of science fiction, but I feel like you have to. I mean, all the stories tell me that we're going to have to eventually expand off the Earth, and I believe we're going to need food to do that. So I have to admit, you must say that all the time. Like, hey, what are you doing? Like, oh, I'm just growing food on the moon. No big, like. It
Definitely
just
be a
seems
bragging
so.
right.
Oh, I tell you, when I describe my research, people are like, "Oh, you do that, do you?" All right. Thank you for clarifying that. Oh, and then I say, hey, Young, I see your mic isn't working, but Allison covered it. That's great. All right. I actually saw a really good question from Wally that I kind of want to know too. It says it was asking for the mosquito project, the blood platelets project. We actually have two questions. The first is, did you say is one blood type more susceptible than any others? Let's see. I'm checking to see if they're still in the chat and still have audio. Everybody's kind of bopping in and out. Oh, yep, I have to leave. Okay, but great. Okay, they're saying we can always post these questions and give them a chance to answer them later. It's like there's a posting place where you can put the title of the presentation, and I'm sure, of course, Daniel will share all that with you at the end of this event. But so that way you can type up your question, and then they can get back to it when they have a chance and type a reply. But I do also want to mention there was a question from Dr. Laverne that says, for those working on assisted living, do you think there's a way for us to make these facilities more available? The person that was doing the assisted living, now, did they come in? I hope so, but I don't think so. Okay, again, that's another good for poster. I'm going to go for Scott White. Can you explain what a Kerosene spring actually is to our questioner? So Scott White, can you explain what a Kerosene spring actually is?
Yes, I can. What a karst spring technically is just a set of caverns underground, which is holding all of our water. So like Florida, it's pretty much the whole aquifer is just a big, huge karstic system, and it's just a series of caves that the water moves through.
Yeah, I have to. Now, have you been able to kind of go and actually kind of explore any of this, or no? That's just not something anyone does.
No, I have not. Most of our data I just got off of like a government website, and I just used that to find all my data.
Yeah, no, I'm sure that's much safer. I think it sounds so beautiful. All right, well, thank you very much, sir, for that. And now we have a question for Cordell. Cordell, can you explain why so many people want to keep the wars separate, the Seminole Wars separate, rather than see them as one event?
I think this kind of connects to the just the ways that the history has been studied. It's always been studied from a very Western point of view. It's an event that's always looked at from the point of view of the United States at the time. And as far as the United States was concerned, they were three separate wars. I mentioned this the other day when I was discussing this project during my webinar, that the United States used the interwar periods as a time to like not look at the issue that was arising between themselves and the Seminole people. And so like I think just because we're so used to studying this period of history from a Western perspective, we kind of lose out on that Native Americans perspective that would actually kind of show the truth of the matter, that the wars themselves were more than just three separate instances of conflicts, but one long.
I do appreciate that point. You know, history is so important that you always have to realize that it's so often, you know, it's going to have one person's perspective more than the other, and you have to really work to really understand the entire whole. So thank you again for that, for the work you did on that. Question for you, Jayla. Do you think your findings could be related to anything in the U.S., or do you see more corruption in other countries?
Honestly, I think that my findings could have could be related to things in the U.S. on what I researched on, such as like the political regime, natural resources, and whatnot. Honestly, I chose Africa, the continent of Africa, because I know that's more of a standpoint for developing countries. That's what I was gearing more toward, and I was building from the foundation up, trying to figure out what is causing this um, non-stop cycle of corruption. Um, so yeah, I believe that corruption exists in all countries. However, um, corruption varies upon how developed the country is, the wealth of the country, what their natural resources are like, how progressive they are. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, I think it's the one a lot of us were thinking about when you see elements that, you know, are tendencies or things happening, you know, you start to worry that, you know, we need to work on it here. Maybe not as much as some other countries, but it is a concern. So thank you very much for that research. Very helpful.
Thank you.
Professor Laverna has a question for the people that were working on reading speed and comprehension. She was just asking for any suggestions you could provide, and I think the entire group speaks for her. Any kind of quick tips, tricks, or probably not quick, but any kind of larger um, uh, things that you'd like to suggest? Oh, boy, I'm trying to see if they're still with us. Well, how about this? I just want to throw out, I know we're getting to the end of our time and people are leaving, but can I just say one thing and just say, is there anything that anybody wants to share that was kind of a surprise? Like, a lot of this research has been challenging and difficult, and under the conditions of COVID, we totally all get that. But is there something that was a surprise, something that was unexpected, something that just, to me, that's one of the fun things of research, those little unexpected things. And I'm opening this to anybody that wants to put it out there.
I can kind of answer something along those lines.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cordell.
So for my research with the Seminoles, one of the things that really kind of stood out to me as something that I wasn't quite expecting to see was I knew there would be some aspects of racism involved in my project, but the level of racism towards Native American people, in this case the Seminoles, in the 1800s, kind of like really like shocked me. Specifically, like I remember looking at the Second Seminole War, and this was an issue in the first as well. But the Second Seminole War, there was this like very contemporary belief that Native American people were not intelligent enough to actually like resist the United States government, and so um, the United States had this contemporary belief that the escaped people from enslavement that had escaped from the United States down into this Florida territory were actually orchestrating the war. And it was this belief that kind of like I knew there was racism in white people versus minority people at the time, but it was almost like there was different levels of classifications within those minorities that the white society kind of viewed as even lesser than other minorities, and that would be like the Native American groups.
Well, Cordell, thank you for sharing that, because I feel like an important part of research is, finding out new things, but also finding out things that, are difficult sometimes to either understand or to accept, but being able to see through new perspectives and to really become more open-minded and, look to find answers. And I feel like we've actually had a lot of that theme running through this week, including our wonderful speaker, Dr. Yancey. So thank you for that. I think that's a wonderful way. I mean, maybe it's not a happy thought, but I actually really appreciate that kind of clear-eyed truth telling. And of course, Victoria and Riley are also chiming in in their chat about the pacing method, because they couldn't answer that question audially. I appreciate that very much. In fact, I appreciate all of you so much. I hope you know how much we appreciate all the hard work that you do, and also the hard work that you share, because otherwise I wouldn't know about so many things. I love to be a lifelong learner, and events like this really help me to do that. So thank you all so much. I think that you see that there's many of us that feel the same way, and we will hope you continue to check those boards and fill out other comments and check for questions, as well as I want to remind you, from 3 to 6 tomorrow, you get to see what the graduate school students are investigating. I have to say that that is always another, more chances to hear about things that you might be interested, and also talk to graduate students about the level of research and how they're pursuing it at their level. So I would urge you to check into that event tomorrow from 3 to 6. But thank you from everybody here, and of course, thank you to, despite the tech problems, I know Danielle did nothing here but work to fix them, and thank you all for logging off and logging on and jumping through the hoops and raising your hands. We look forward to seeing you face to face in the future, but thank you for letting us not stop this event, because it means so much to us. So again, I think all the closing posters are up, yes, and again, everyone's saying thank you and applauding. Add my 2 cents to that as well, and have a good evening. Although I love you all, I'm going to go eat. And I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I hope I'll see some of you at the events tomorrow. Oh, and of course, I've just been reminded there are awards. What am I forgetting about? Of course, there's stuff, there's awards, and that's going to be in this very room. Actually, no, in that link that is connected. So be sure to check that out. Before I eat, I will go check out the awards. I'm not going to lie. So thank you guys all so much, and pop over to the other thing and check out the award winners, and have a great evening.